Let's do it.
I got that about done. Cool. Just start off on there. I already took a look at it. All right. So yeah, how to pull your expireds. So we found that like we use certain programs which we'll go into a bit later. But they all have like a subscription based service, and we definitely want to make sure that you guys can get in for free and not have to pay that out. So we use a Remind, which is through the MLS, and that's just something that comes with your MLS subscription. So if you have access to the MLS, you can definitely go ahead and do this. And so just taking you through here, you can find Remind if you go to Market at the top of the screen, and then just hit right on Remind Pro, and it should just keep you logged in. Everything's through the MLS. And then so the first thing you want to do is first pull the properties you want to see, or the areas that you want to focus in. So you can go over to search, and then kind of start from there of pulling out those properties. So you can, the first thing you want to do is go to status and pull everything expired and canceled, and grab that list together, and then the status date. So this is kind of personal. If you wanted to just go through a whole big call session, you can pull for the past year, get all those numbers together, and create a dial session. Or if you're keeping current, then you can just go day by day and keep searching for new things that are popping up each day. So that just depends on the status date and how far you want to go back. And then the next big piece is just drawing a radius on the map or selecting those specific locations for which you want to focus in. So for us, we pull expireds for the large part of PA, around Delaware County, as well as southern New Jersey. But depending on whatever you want to focus in, you can pull that from there. And
this is a great opportunity too to be super hyper local, right? If you want to. You don't have to pull a huge area if you're not looking for tons of numbers. And so it's great because it's like, hey, if you have a bunch of clients and you need to like add a couple, well, then just pull the ones around your neighborhood, right? Really, let's just just look for the expireds that have expired within 6 blocks of your house over the last year. There's going to be some, right? And if you're downtown, that is. And if you want to pull bigger, you can pull bigger. And so this can fluctuate for you, right? If you only need to pick up a couple clients, then you'll just, you can pull 3 or 4 expireds a day that are really specific to you. Or you can pull the expireds that are around your listing, for example. Or you can pull the expireds in the area that your buyer's looking for, which is something that we have just started doing. Sometimes things dawn on you like, duh. Of course, we should call expireds in the area that our buyers are looking for properties. How cool are you that you have access to off-market properties that you can be able to get for your client that other agents aren't even calling? What a great value proposition to be able to say, listen, I'll call anybody. I'll call anybody to find you a house. And you can call, homes that used to be for sale in your neighborhood. And the great part about this search is, sorry, Jack, I'm stealing all your thunder, but I get really excited. Because I'm an I, right? Everybody knows now that I'm an I. It makes a lot of sense. So you can actually go back and search for expireds from 4 years ago, right? 3 years ago, 2 years. It doesn't have to be like things that happened yesterday, things that were for sale that expired some time ago, and say, listen, I got a buyer that's interested in a house just like yours. I saw the pictures when it was on the market three months ago. It looks fantastic. Can I bring my buyer by? You might be able to pick up a list and a sell at the same time for half the work. So you can manipulate these filters that Jack's pointing out here to really kind of determine the volume that you want to be calling. And you can make it super specific. It can be just about one person who wants a 3-bedroom, 2-bath, South Philly row home in this particular area. And you can draw that little map and go research for that one person. Or you can just check all of Delaware County because you don't have any clients and you want to pick up some. Either way, you can kind of adjust it for what you're looking for. Sorry, Jack.
Yeah, and that's the point I was going to bring up too with how far back you can pull. So we definitely call expireds that, from 2 years ago, 3 years ago, and you're just dealing with a lot less competition. So with everything new that you see today, you're going to be, seeing a lot of there's going to be just a lot of people calling them, and they might be a little bit more frustrated than you tend to see. But when you're calling a year or two back, no one's really calling those people. So you're the only person that's reaching out to them, and that just provides an opportunity to just so you know, the conversion rate is definitely going to be lower. Usually it's about, I would say, probably 2 times like worse than anything current today. But take that with a grain of salt, and you can, I mean, if you go through 100, that's still potentially if you make 100 conversations, that's still potentially an appointment in there, and a potential listen that you never had. So
Go ahead,
definitely
Dana.
definitely worth pulling it out or going far back.
Yeah, one thing I wanted to add for you guys, a lot of agents will call brand new expired. So don't be surprised if you call an expired and they're like, oh, you're realtor number 5 to call me. So do be open to people that maybe have expired 6 months, a year, 2 years on the market. They're probably not getting as many calls. So thanks so much, Jack. That just totally triggered me.
Yeah, and a lot of people they're they had the inclination to sell at one point. So many times it's still there. It might be in the back of their brain, but to bring that to the forefront, we've had some situations where oh, I kind of did want to sell, and that sounds interesting. And especially with how this market's going right now, if you were to pull things back 2 years ago, they're just the increase in the price that they could sell it for is huge. I mean, there could be a 10% difference in what they could have sold it 2 years ago and failed to sell it from what they could actually get right now. So just a different potential opportunity there. But yeah, so once you have that's by specific criteria down for whatever is best for you, from there you can all the potential listings will pop up on the right side, so that you can select all of them that you want to pull the numbers for, and then move them to your cart. So that's this little piece that's highlighted on the top right. So you move them all to your cart. And then on the left column there, you can head over to your card and kind of name that file. And then you import them all to a CSV. So once they go to a CSV, you'll be able to see, let me see what so yeah, once you put them to a CSV, you can actually select what fields you want to pick. So, property address, owner information is what's going to give you those numbers through Remind. But you can pick, maybe estimated value if you're potentially interested, days of market, things like that. Anything that you want to pull, you can just kind of select that, and that'll be exported right to the CSV. And if you're not using a dialer, to be honest, you could probably just pull the property address and owner information, and then look each thing up in bright, and then call them from there, single lines. So you have all the previous information available. So that just depends on what you want to take a look at and what's in that CSV. But that's where all the numbers will be populated. And then so yeah, this is what the list looks like. We just selected a couple of columns, and then you have all your numbers there. It's probably something like 1 in 3 properties will give you a number. So it's not as accurate as again some of the things that we'll use, but it's free. So it's a way to just get some numbers and start up that process.
One of the great things, can you go back to that list? Because I know what Dana's going to say here about the DNC list, right? So is that what you're going to say, Dana?
I wasn't, but that's another good point.
Yeah. So you always want to be very careful to not call the do not call list. And so what's great about this Remind list is I was worried that it wouldn't be scrubbed for the DNC. And so you'd be calling people a little bit blind, which is not smart in today's litigious society. So, but it does demarcate those that are on the do not call list, so you can skip those. And sometimes people will have 2 numbers for the same person. I mean, oftentimes, right? Can you? No, you can't see that on that list really, but oftentimes they'll have more than 1 number for that person, but only 1 will be on the DNC list. So you can, feel free to call anything that's not demarcated on the do not call. So pretty cool.
So I was going to add, okay, Robin, we got this awesome list, but man, now I got to hand manually put in all of these contacts into my command. You don't. you can also import these into your command super easy. So once you've identified, the ones that you have called that are potential opportunities, we can just import them in. And remember, just because someone says they're not interested in selling today doesn't necessarily mean that they might not be interested 6 months or a year from now. Make sure you're asking the questions, because that could be somebody potential just at a later date.
That's a great point. We actually call those singles in our office, and you win a baseball game. Everybody who's ever a baseball player, you win a baseball game with singles, right? It's very, very rare that you get home runs. And even in calling expireds, if your expectation is for someone to be like, oh my God, I've been waiting for you to call. Yes, let's sell my house. Can we sell it tomorrow? You're going to get those calls, but like, Jack, how often does that happen? When Jack was calling, 8 hours a day, maybe once every other week, right? So the reality is that you're going to get singles, people who are like, maybe I do want to sell. Let me think about it, or let me do this or whatever. Can you call me back or whatever? But all of those, once you get to that, that's a lead. That's a powerful lead. That's the same as your cousin who says, hey, I have this friend of mine that wants to buy a house and they're not quite ready yet. Because that's the majority of what you find, right? Like the reality, I would love for every potential lead to just want to sell right now or want to buy right now. But in reality, everybody's on a different time schedule, right? But you just want to, now you can put them in command and now you can follow up with them as long as you have their permission.
Alex, do you feel comfortable sharing your story that happened with your friend about a potential listing?
Well, the one that I brought up to you the other day? Sure. I mean, it was a phone call. Well, they messaged me on Facebook, said, hey, Alex, and I said, what's up? And they said, give me a call. So I called them and then they, said, hey, I'm thinking about listing my home, but I'm not looking to sell right away because their daughter is graduating high school in June. So the daughter's still using the house, in the meantime. I said, yeah, that's fine. And then, so I scheduled to go see the house on Wednesday. And I said, hey, listen, I know you don't want to sell right now, but I want to come through, take a look and, get more, details about your home. And I said, the more time we have to, prepare it, we'll get a better result. And he said, it sounds good. So I'm going to go see him on Wednesday.
Love it. Great job.
All thanks to you, Dana. All thanks to you.
You did the hard part.
That's awesome. There's nothing better than that. I mean, that's the best call ever. Right, Dana? Is that like, hey, the come list me call? Oh my God, that's like the greatest real estate call of all time. So I'm glad that you got to experience that, Alex. That's awesome.
All right, back to you, Jack.
All right.
I want to learn more.
Let's do it. But yeah, that's a really good point with command and being able to upload in your prospects, right into there. And so the next piece of the puzzle, if you wanted to just take a look at any specific property, so that was a bulk upload if you wanted to download information for some multiple properties and certain criteria. But if you want to just take a look at a specific property, it's actually super easy in Remind here. So kind of all you have to do is just really search up the property address, and you scroll all the way to the bottom of that profile, and then they'll have owners and associated people. So all those numbers are shown, and they're automatically scrubbed for the DNC. So you'll be able to see if that's in the DNC or not. And so yeah, that's kind of how we go and pull expireds through Remind. Is there any questions with that? All right. And then so just so you guys know, I'll go through this real quick of really how we pull expireds. And this is with much higher value data, and in majority we're getting numbers for the large majority of homes, whether they're right or not. probably like 30% of the numbers are wrong, maybe less, but this is how we go ahead and pull expireds here. So the first thing we do is
can I pause 1 second, Jack? That's another thing to know, is that you're going to get wrong numbers, right? This is part of it's called skip tracing, which you're trying to find people. You're trying to find people's numbers. I had a girlfriend in middle school. Her name was Alma Leach, and I kind of like semi love of my life, but I was in like 6th grade. Okay. And I have like tried to find Alma Leach's number multiple times throughout my life. Not recently, not since I've had my daughter and been married, if in case you're wondering, but I've been curious, I want to find Alma Leach's number. So I've called about like 6 Alma Leaches in my lifetime. Never really reached the Alma Leach that like was my 6th grade love. So just know, I don't know why that's the metaphor or the example that I use, but just know that you're gonna get the wrong numbers, because when they pull this information, right, there's more than one Robin Martin, there's more than one Travis Miller, there's more than one whatever. So you're going to get some wrong numbers. They're scraping the internet. It's a pretty cool program where they use to scrape the internet. They'll pull it off of Facebook pages. They'll pull it off of like Google searches, and that's how Remind gathers their data. But just know that like some of it's going to be wrong, old, right? It's an old number for someone that they didn't, or it's someone who lived at that address because they were renting it, or it's the cousin of someone who lived there, whatever it may be. So know you're going to get some wrong numbers. If that happens, you just apologize. Sorry to bother for calling. And if you want to be a total gangster, you can say, hey, while I have you on the phone, are you interested? When's the last time you looked at homes? Have you thought about buying a house? But if you don't, that's okay. You can just get off the phone. But just know you're going to get some wrong numbers. That's just part of skip tracing, part of looking up these things. So you're going to get wrong numbers, and a lot of the data that we pay for to call expireds has a lot of wrong numbers. We're paying for more data, not necessarily better data. Just more data. So we know for us, we'll call 6 people to get to the right person. That's fine, right? But just know that you're going to get wrong people with your data as well. Sorry, Jack.
No problem. Yeah, yeah, definitely. And yes, so kind of how we go and pull those expireds is we have a safe search in the MLS. So it's very, with Vulcan is what we use to gather all the data and gather all the numbers. So it's called Vulcan 7. And so what we do here is we have a safe search set up in Bright with the specific criteria that's needed for Vulcan to actually scrub all those properties and scrub the data. So once we go and we create our search for expired, so we do this every morning, usually about 7:30. So we have that fresh list by 8. So we're pulling in all the expireds in our certain criteria in the past 0 to 1 days. So we'll see everything that came like last night and everything that came in the morning. So we'll have that fresh list. And then that is all uploaded into Vulcan, which then processes everything. And usually, if it's not super busy, about 10 to 20 minutes for them to produce us a list of some numbers, and then that gets directly uploaded into our dialer, which is Mojo Dialer, and that's where we do like triple line dialing and call multiple people at once to really prioritize our time. And so I might have gotten the rest of the slides deleted here. That is unfortunately all I have, but that's kind of the process of how we go in and pull that through. But if you have any questions, or if you're interested in how to get that started, let us know. But they are like those specific programs are pretty expensive per month. So that's more like when you're really getting into it and looking to get the best data.
For those that don't know, Jack and Robin, could you share like what is a dialer? How is a dialer different than me just picking up my phone and dialing stuff?
Sure. So with the dialer, the primary dialer that we use is Mojo Dialer. So kind of how this works is once all the data is uploaded into Mojo, we can then click on the list for everything that was new that popped up during the day, and then we could start up the dialer. So we can do single line, which would just call that person and then cycle through every number. So if there's usually 2 to 4 numbers per contact. So it'll call the first number and keep cycling through until we run through all the numbers, and then it'll move on to the next contact. So you can do that for single line. And it does the same for double line and triple line. So if you wanted to call 2 or 3 contacts at the same time, it'll actually ring everyone at once. And then the first person to answer, that's who you're connected to. But if you were to connect to multiple people at a certain time, what it does is, so we'll connect to whoever that first person was that picked up the phone. But if someone else answers while we were also ringing them, we have like a custom voicemail that's basically just like blank noise. So when they answer the phone, it's blank noise, and when we actually go to call them back, we're like, oh, my bad, something was going on with my phone, or if I had an issue with my phone, right? So it just makes the transition pretty smooth, and it just makes sense, because any other explanation would just be weird.
Well, and most dialers are single line dialers. So we use the triple line dialer when we're trying to call through volume. But a dialer itself is just it's just a computer program that queues up the next number for you to call. So like when you call your lead, and then you hang up the phone, and then and then if you want to call the next lead, you'd have to look at your list and figure out the numbers, and then dial that into your phone, and then wait for it to ring, and then say hello. So a dialer just does that automatically for you. So you could load 10 numbers at a time, and the dialer will call the first one, and then as soon as you hang up, as soon as you hit end it's on the computer, right? So as soon as you hit end, it starts dialing the next one in the line. It just keeps going in the line. So it allows you to call them faster. In general, you can call about 25 people per hour with your fingers. So that's about the maximum that you can do. A dialer will allow you to go to about double that, to about 50, and triple line dialers allow you to call significantly more. But the dialer it's a simple tool. And so if you find yourself calling more, large volumes of numbers, we'll be happy to hip you guys to some cheaper dialers. A lot of CRMs, like our CRM, has a dialer in it, but you can find cheaper dialers if that's something that you want to do. But for the vast majority of people, especially if you're just calling a couple, your phone will be fine. He's just kind of running down kind of the what you do if you wanted to do this at volume. But for most people, the phone is plenty good. If you find yourself calling for more than 2 hours at a time, then you should probably look into a dialer. But other than that, you're probably fine.
It's an investment, guys. So get comfortable, number one, making calls. And then that's something, when you get your commission check, put some money aside to consider investing back into your business with a dialer.
Yeah, dialers, and they're not that expensive. I think you could probably get a cheap dialer for like $60 to $80 a month, right? So that's not crazy. But really, it's only worth that if you're going to be on the phone for a couple hours a day. So if you're deciding that this is one of the pillars of your business, then I would definitely invest in the dialer, because you get to double your time, and that's worth it. But in the beginning, while you're getting started, we used our fingers, right, Jack? So that was probably a good couple months until we moved into the dialer. Yeah.
Well, that's about all I got.
Well, thank you, Jack.
That was fantastic, Jack.
Right?
Give Jack,
Thanks
that was
so
Jack's
much.
first presentation. Can we give him
Thanks
some
so
love?
much.
Yeah, that was great. I told him this morning he was doing it too. So that was he pulled it together and crushed it really well. So very, very good. But yeah, that's how we do it. But the reality is that really with these simple tools, you can really start doing some of this yourself. And it's just a volume thing, right? It takes, maybe you're going to get about 1 out of every 20 people are going to pick up the phone, right? That's the kind of numbers you're really expecting, right? And then it might take you 20 people to be able to convert one lead, right? And that's okay though, because if you got nothing else going on, you might as well call some people and try and find some clients, because like Alex has a listing presentation you get to go on, right? Like that's pretty awesome. Imagine if you went on one a week. What kind of business could you have then, right? And that's at your fingertips now. because you know what Jack just showed you. You know how to pull those numbers, and you know that those people are, you know, that they want to sell their house for the most part. So you have a roadmap, and I think that was what we were so hungry for in the beginning, because we see people like Dana, and they're like, yeah, just, you know, call your sphere, and we're like, right, and so but we eventually, you know, we did, and we gained clients that way. But what if you called your sphere? What if you're done? You know, like, and now what, right? Like, we just didn't want to. It's just a little bit of gas for your car, right? This, like, I think the sphere-based path makes a lot of sense for almost everyone. So we're not trying to say that you need to go make calls for 7 hours a day. This is just always like, if you are not making as much money as you'd like to, and you have some time, here's an opportunity to fill in those gaps. That's it, right? And you can fill it in as much as you want, or you can fill it in as little as you want. But I mean, an appointment, or, you know, what if it's an appointment every 2 weeks? What if it's one appointment a month? One more listing appointment a month. That's the game changer, right? That's another $40,000, right? A year. So one listing appointment a month. So, you know, even if you're converting at 35 or 40% of your listing appointments, that's a pretty good number. And that's definitely doable if you're willing to make some calls. So thank you, Jack, for doing that research. And it's really great that you can do it for free, right? We were actually going to let you plug into some of our tools, but we didn't need to, because you can do it in Remine for free. So thank you, Jack, for doing that research, and thank you for your presentation. That was fantastic.
That was awesome. Thank you so much, Jack. You're a rock star. I thought you practiced like for all week, because that was clutch. One thing I would ask though, Jack, I think the biggest question is, all right, now I have my list. What do I say something different? Like, how do I start that call, right? I have my list, I dial that number. What am I saying to this expired listing? Because that's not my aunt or my cousin or my best friend, right? So is this conversation different? Is it the same?
So yeah, it's really about the same as we've been practicing the past couple of weeks, to be honest. So that's insurance script that we provided. That's what we used for every expired call. So it's going to change just a little bit depending on how like far back you're calling these expires. If it's from 2 years ago, you say, oh, I saw your expired, you know, I saw your property went off the market a while back, and blah blah blah. But our general script is, hey, you know, I saw your home went off the market a couple of days back. And just curious to see, you know, if that was still available, or if that actually sold. And that's really all we say to get it started. But you know, if it was from a while back, hey, you know, I saw your property went off the market, you know, about 2 years ago. I know it was a super long time ago, but this market's super hot. You know, is that still something you're considering selling? And we just use variations of that depending on, you know, what the property looks like, how far back it was. But and then you really take it from there. That's the only script that we actually have, and the rest is just the question based, or it's asking those right questions and moving forward with that process of rephrasing, reflecting.
Love it. That's awesome. What questions do you guys have? Kelly, Jen, Alex, we have 15 minutes left. Open Q&A. What do you want to know about expireds?
I guess when I've looked at those lists in the past, I've been a little bit confused how to approach it, just because within the list, there'll be LLCs, there'll be individuals. If it's an LLC, how do you approach it? And then like, if it's an individual, I don't know, do you find people are, like, I feel like people are very suspicious these days. And if you call them and seem like you have information on their property and know their name, and they're like, who are you? Why do you know all this stuff about me? Does that tend to intimidate people?
Yeah, I mean, that's very fair. We run into that a lot. Like, how'd you get my number? You know, and really, there's, it's hard to, you know, come up with an exact answer, because we are doing a bit of snooping, I suppose. But really, the only answer that we bring up is, you hey, we found them from the internet. We saw that your property went off the market a couple months back. We have some buyers looking around the area. There's not a lot of inventory on the market. We want to provide our best service to our sellers. So we say, hey, we got it from the market, and then come up with potentially some reason, or you leave it at that and just ask the next question. And the vast majority of people would just kind of take it with that and be okay. There's going to be some that are peeved, but that's just kind of part of the process. Like, hey, sorry to back up from there, and then kind of hang up the phone. But in majority cases, probably 75-80%, that just goes right through. Hey, just got it off the internet, and then kind of a reason for your calling, whether it's buyers in the area, whether it's because of how hot this market is, and it's usually okay from there.
That's another thing we'll do later on in the session, is how to answer questions without answering them. And this is a skill that you'll use even when you're talking to your cousin, right? Like, it's like there are some rabbit holes you don't want to go down, right? Like, hey, are there rent to own possibilities for this, right? Like, that's a 30-minute conversation that you don't want to have. So yeah, some people do that. It's been relatively ineffective. I found that to be relatively ineffective, and kind of a tough road to hoe. Ask your next question, right? So you just don't have to go in there. You can give a quick answer and then ask your next question. It's a skill that you'll use no matter what kind of leads you're talking to, because it's just a rabbit hole you don't want to go down. But just so you know, all of the, if you want to know who owns a property, you can go to the city of Philadelphia and look up their information in public records. It's not a secret. So if you want to know who owns your neighbor's property, I mean, you can look it up on the internet. But even in 1950, you could go down to City Hall and look up who owned it and look up their information, and it's not a state secret, right? So if listen, all that information is in public records. We're just whatever, and then just move on to ask your next question. Usually people leave it alone. It's also people are suspicious, Kelly, but also at the same time, we've all been called by someone that knows our name. It's not that weird anymore.
I would say too, just be mindful, like if it is someone's personal name versus an LLC, like, does it have the property listed as their mailing address, or do they have a different mailing address? That would trigger my mind. Probably most LLCs are investors. So be mindful of that and consider they're going to care way more about numbers and statistics versus a primary homeowner that's probably going to be way more emotional about it. So if you can kind of go into that conversation with that plan in mind, that might be helpful too. Hey, I'm calling this next one. It's an LLC. Do I know some stats and numbers? What's the days on market? What's, the average sale price in this neighborhood? So you have that prepared and ready to throw it right out there. That might be really enticing to them.
Yeah, there's some interesting opportunities there. We used to skip those because those are scary. Those people are scary. They know too much, And so we used to skip those in the beginning. But there's some really, we've actually had some really fun experiences with investors now, where and honestly they're easier to call because they're usually pretty easy to talk to because they're in this business, right? So when people call to sell me whatever, I'm usually not that rude to them because I know what it's like to be on the phone. And a lot of these guys, they're the LLCs especially, right? They are, they do this for a profession. So they go through and they might be frustrated. Most of them all have real estate agents that they work with. And most of them are frustrated with the current real estate agent that they're working with. So there's some really opportunities there to not just pick up one, but hey, like if you do a good job there, they might own 42 properties and they might do this a couple times a year. So that's not a bad person to get to know. And we picked up a couple of those. I'm thinking of Joe, Jack, but that now
Maria.
we're their guys. We're their people. So when they have a question, we just provide high levels of service. And as a new agent, you can actually crush it because if they're working with, Gaurav's not answering their phone call. I mean, Gaurav's got stuff to do. You know what I mean? He's like, hopefully, if I was Gaurav, I'd be golfing. You know, I'd be doing something else. So you can beat some really established agents by just being attentive, especially with LLCs, because that's all they want, right? Like they don't necessarily need the, you know, they just want to make sure that they can call you on a Saturday and get an answer. So an opportunity there for sure.
Jen, Alex, any questions?
Yeah, actually, like, so all the lead generation stuff is great, but Alex's appointment on Wednesday got me thinking, because I've heard this question asked in so many trainings, is that, okay, he's there, he's in the house, he's taking his pictures, and then we get the, you know, how do you have that conversation about signing the listing agreement or the buyer's agreement or the consumer notice?
Dana, this is all you. I'm working on this myself, Jen.
Sure.
So yeah, this is a great question for Dana.
Thank you for bringing that up, Jen. It's a great question. I think the biggest thing for me is it's not the first time I'm bringing it up when I'm in that house. So when I'm setting that appointment, 9 times out of 10, I'm letting that buyer or that seller know, great, I'm going to be sending you an email with all the paperwork that we're going to be going over in person, but I want you to have an opportunity to read it over so that I can answer any questions when I'm there. I'm going to be sending you the consumer notice. I'm going to be sending you my buyer, you know, agency agreement. And I let them know that this is very much a partnership, right? I can't do my job if you're not in it too, and vice versa. And by doing that, I'm kind of setting myself up for success, because now when I'm in that house and I'm touring it and we're going over everything, my question is not, hey, now let's sit down and go over this paperwork that you've never seen before. It's, hey, let's go over that paperwork. What are your questions? 9 times out of 10, people don't have a problem with it. They might have like 1 or 2 questions, but if they trust you and they like you and they believe that you're going to do a good job, they're going to sign the paperwork. This isn't something that like we have personally created. It's a standard state form from, you know, the Realtor Association of Pennsylvania. So there's nothing in there that they should be scared of. Most of the time, people are going to have questions about the timeline and about the price. So what they're going to have to pay you. I like to have that conversation again up front before I'm walking in the house with them, because the general public typically doesn't know how we're paid. And it's a really awkward conversation because they're like, I need to ask you, but I don't know how to ask you. So I just let them know, if it's whether it's a friend and family member or an expired that I'm calling, hey, just want to be upfront and honest with you. I am an open book. That kind of sets the stage for me, that they can ask me anything. I want to let you know, I am not paid a commission by, I'm not paid a salary by Keller Williams. I am not paid hourly for Keller Williams. The only way that I am able to pay my bills and feed my family is by helping you achieve what you want. People then are a little bit more open about it. And when they ask me for a discount, then, right, like, oh, well, Hauser or Redfin is offering, you know, less, you know, what can you do? My favorite kind of comeback is, would you like discount service as well?
That's gangster, Dana. Sometimes you say that, like, you have some good pearls. Yeah, I think my go-to is, you know, if it's a $300,000 house, say, listen, if I got you $1 million for this house and my commission was 50%, is that a deal you would take? Right? If they push back on commission, right? It's like, yeah, well, so it's about the amount of money that's in your pocket, not the percentage that you're paying. Is that correct? And then you can kind of steer it in the right direction. But I think the right before, Jen, right before we pull out the paperwork, that's like the most gut check time, right? You're just like, you know, and one of the things that we, you know, we say is, listen, is there anything that I haven't covered or that you need to know about before you're ready to move forward with me today? Because sometimes there isn't, right? So like Alex, this is for you. Like sometimes you haven't covered something, right? Like maybe they needed to hear more about your marketing, or maybe they need to have the commission conversation with you, or maybe they, and so if you haven't covered it, you don't want to go forward, right? You don't want to ask because they're just going to tell you no, and then you won't know what you needed to tell, like what you're missing. So if this like, listen, what else do you need to know? Is there anything else you need to hear from me before you're ready to move forward with me today? And that's when you reach into the bag. But it's tough. It's like, I mean, Dana, you're probably like you're such a pro. But I feel like I can hear you, like you just the calmness in your voice, like you're not afraid of anything. It's amazing. But I just write that one last minute right before you pull out the paperwork is tough. Is that still tough for you, Dana? That moment, that this is like the actual like dun dun dun.
Yeah, I think I try and like set myself up for success, and I remind myself that if they say no, right, I'm in no different situation than I am right now. I don't have anything signed right now. So the only thing that's going to happen is my life could get way better because they're going to sign this and it's going to be a win. But even if they say no, my situation is no different than how I'm standing right now. Yeah, I might have a little ego bruise, right? Like I might be like, womp womp, but situation wise, I'm in no different financial situation than I am right now. So it can only get better. And you know, like what Robin said, I will literally be pulling out the paperwork and I'll be like, so what's your biggest fear about selling your house, right? Or about buying a house? And I'm just trying to dig a little deeper, right? Because we know we got to answer those like difficult questions, ask the right questions, right? So we can get to the right answers. And if they say, I'm really scared that this house is not going to sell and I'm not going to be able to buy my next house, or I'm really scared that I'm going to get in like a crazy bidding war. Well, now I can reassure them, thank you for sharing that with me. I am going to promise you right now that I will not let that happen. If I find that there's a house that goes on the market and you really want to see it, I'm calling that listing agent and I'm finding out if there are already other offers. I'm not going to let you get into a bidding war situation because you just shared with me that's your biggest fear. Mr. Seller, you just told me you don't want this house to sit on the market for, 6 months. I am going to promise you that if you listen to me when I share these comp numbers with you and we put this house at a market value price and we get feedback, about this house, I'm going to do everything in my power to make sure you are well aware of what's going on the market so that we can sell this house together in less than 6 months. I've now eliminated their biggest fear, right? So now it's just a matter of just signing this paperwork. But I don't rush it, right? But I get all of that like hard, scary stuff out 9 times out of 10, especially, right? Those like high C's, high S's, they might really want to read every single word, every single line. If I give it to them ahead of time, they have time to read through it and have their laundry list of questions for me. So
Dana,
preparation is definitely.
Can I steal that? Because I love it. I'm stealing that. I don't do that, and I should do that. That's fantastic. I'm 100% going to steal that. That's great.
Yeah. Hey, don't make a new wheel, right? Don't reinvent it. It's a great invention. Just use it, make it better, and then share your improvement with me.
So Alex, tell us, are you gonna go see this property today or tomorrow? Tomorrow?
Wednesday.
You said a date yet? Wednesday.
He said they said Wednesday. I'm trying to confirm a time, and then when they confirm the time, I want to ask for the email, and I'm going to say I have some paperwork I got to send over to you. to look over. And if you have any questions, I can answer it when I come.
Can I give you a piece that's not a piece of advice like what you should say or what you should do, but I would practice, right? And I would pick someone from this class. It could be me if you want, but I think it's just it's good to like say what you're going to say a couple of times, even if it's in the mirror, right? And we talked about this in the beginning. It's very dangerous to practice on paychecks, right?
Right.
So we want to practice before we get to that space. And that's kind of what we're doing in this class, right? Like some of the things that you're learning and all of it's valuable feedback. We want to try and practice a couple of times outside. And I know that everybody on this Zoom would be more than happy to hear your pitch and to give you some thoughts. Because I think you just want to have a little bit of a framework going in. And I think what's helpful about practicing is that you now get to focus on what you want to focus on, which is them. Because if you're thinking about what you need to say next and you're missing them going, well, you're in trouble, right? Because like they're bored, right? Or whatever it may be, you want to be able to pick up on their vibes. And if you know what you're going to say, or at least have some, even if you're reading it or like looking at your computer screen or whatever, if you've done it a couple of times, you're going to be able to pay attention to them and pick up on cues and be able to like counter with objections because I'll counter their objections because all the stuff we learned in this class for talking with over the phone, it's the same with talking in person. You want to mirror and match, right?
Right.
You want to work on rephrasing and reflecting, right? And so these are skills you can only really do if you're not in your own head trying to think of what you want to say next. So that's my advice to you. You're about to go on I imagine to be a $6,000 or more performance, right? So if you're gonna, awesome. So just include a couple hours of practice. I think that's that's still going to make your dollar per hour pretty awesome, right?
All right. Gotcha.